The game is over. The emotions are raw. But the takes are ready. It's time for Postgame Live with Jared Stillman.
Okay, good evening, good afternoon, good Sunday, whatever the hell you want to say, and welcome into Postgame Live. Tennessee and Indianapolis mercifully is over, and I got to say that was the closest 41-20 game I have ever seen in my entire life, because that game was over about 5 seconds into the game when Cam Ward floated that pass. I don't know what the hell he was doing out there. Cam Ward floated that pass right to Kenny Moore, who intercepted it and ran it into the end zone for a touchdown. And I'm going to credit the Colts a little bit because I don't think much of the Colts, but I am going to credit the Colts just a little bit because they came into town and I thought they were going to lose. I thought the Colts were going to spend way too much time getting fat and happy all week. And I thought that they were going to show up and they were not going to produce. And the Colts did pretty much everything they wanted to do. Daniel Jones, quarterback rating of 113.4. Jonathan Taylor, 102 and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Indianapolis's defense, 4 sacks. And of course, a pick 6. They kind of did whatever they wanted to do. They missed a field goal. I mean, I guess that's the one thing that they didn't do. They punted 1 time, by the way. Outside of that, for the Titans, it was just a total disaster. And it was a total disaster as far as the head coach is concerned. We will hear from the head coach when the head coach gets to the podium here at some point, which, again, good luck to him. But we shall see when he gets up there. You know, how is he going to handle the questions? And I know that the Titans, the local beat guys, and I mean this with all due respect to every single one of them, I think they have given Callahan the benefit of the doubt for far too long. And I keep going back to the summer with the Pee Wee program. The Titans penalized again. I want to say they were penalized 8 times today, but it actually may have been more. Tennessee penalized 8 times for 68 yards. And it just some stupid fucking penalties. You know, not being able to get lined up right, ever. Or, again, a penalty where Ross Tucker on a kickoff says, okay, this will be good. This will give them good field position. And then they call it on the Titans. And Ross Tucker on the CBS broadcast is saying, oh, my God, I don't know. But let's get to the reaction early and often here. The YouTube chat will be where we go as far as the reaction is concerned. And I don't know if everybody else is going to say this. I don't know what anybody else is going to say. Again, the game just went final. But I am going to tell you what I would do if I owned the Tennessee Titans, because I do believe that when it comes to making decisions on coaches, when it comes to quarterbacks, whatever, it's so easy. And the coaches get like this and the owners get like this. And they always say, well, it's easy to second guess behind the microphone, but you're not the one who has to live with those decisions. And so I always say, when it was me on the radio or now me doing a podcast, that when it came to crossing the quote unquote red line, I used to always look at it like, hey, if I own the team, would I be willing to make this move knowing that 3 weeks from now I can't say, yeah, I wouldn't have done that? Because, again, a general manager can't say I wouldn't have done that. An owner can't say I wouldn't have done that. If I own the Titans, I would fire Brian Callahan today. And a lot of times, you know, it's a Monday morning kind of thing. If you fire a guy during the season, I wouldn't even wait. Like at 6 o'clock tonight-ish, when the late games are wrapping up, I'd fire him. I'd have the conversation at 5 o'clock. I wouldn't even wait. I'd do it at the stadium. I'd say, hey, once he gets done with the press conference, if I owned the team, once he gets done with the press conference and everything else, and everybody files out, because I'm not trying to fire the coach and embarrass him in front of people or things like that. But once everybody kind of clears out, I'd like to sit down with the coach. And I'd sit down with the coach and I'd tell the coach, Brian, it's not working out. It's time to make a change. And then we'd send out a press release and we would announce that Mike McCoy would be the interim head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Now, again, I would have done things very differently, so I wouldn't even be in this position that the Titans are in. But I again, just looking at this decision, this situation in a blanket, I would fire the head coach. And I would fire the head coach knowing that, again, if Callahan turns it around and Cam Ward becomes a franchise quarterback and we talk about how great Brian Callahan was, because Brian Callahan found a way to turn things around after a 3, and I don't even know what is he, 3-17? After a 3-17 start, Brian Callahan has figured out how to right the ship and has turned this team into Super Bowl contenders 3 years from now. I will say every day, hey, I would have fired him after the Indianapolis game. Now, a lot of you are in the comment section saying, yeah, Jared, that's right. They need to fire him. Yeah. And before I, take all the credit of saying, yeah, guys, I would do that, let me just say it to you like this. I don't think firing Brian Callahan really changes much. Like, it's not going to save the season with Mike McCoy as the interim head coach of the Tennessee Titans. It's not. This team stinks. This team will stink. This team could stink if Vince Lombardi rose from the grave and started coaching them tomorrow. But I don't think they'd stink as bad as they currently stink, where these games are blowouts. The coaching decisions before halftime every week are baffling. And the real issue I have, and this is why I would fire Brian Callahan if I owned the team, is because I think somebody around here has got to be held accountable. And I'm not looking to scratch the itch that I think a lot of you have, which is, we're losing, I'm embarrassed on Sunday, team sucks, fire the coach, get him out of here, I think he sucks, I think that's not the itch I'm talking about. That's what I think a lot of you feel. And I'm not holding out hope that this is really going to change anything. I'm not hiring Mike McCoy to be the interim head coach of the Tennessee Titans to change the season, get to the playoffs, try to make the Super Bowl. I'm not doing any of that. It's 3 games into the year. I would be admitting today, season's over. Coach stinks. I made a mistake in bringing the coach back, which, by the way, I didn't actually do. But I made a mistake in bringing the coach back. Shouldn't have done it. And we have to go in a different direction. But the reason that I would be firing Brian Callahan today, again, I wouldn't even wait for tomorrow morning, is that somebody around here has to be held accountable. And I don't mean somebody has to be held accountable for 0-3. I mean, somebody has to be held accountable for all of the mistakes and all of the fuck-ups that happen on a weekly, and I would probably assume daily basis. How you do anything is how you do everything. And with Callahan and the way he's coached the Titans for 2 years, it's been mistake after mistake after mistake. And every time he just brushes it off. He got away with it by blaming Will Levis last year by saying, oh my God, I told him not to do that in the Chicago game. But what about all the mistakes that Colt Anderson's special teams unit made? Again, I know they're buddies, and I know Callahan probably didn't have a great viable replacement on the staff that he could just go sit there and say, okay, you're in now, you're the new coordinator. That would have made it that easy. But somebody had to be held accountable, and nobody was. And that is Brian Callahan in a nutshell. That has been what this has been here in Nashville for 2 years, which is somebody makes a mistake and there's nobody to be blamed for it. And that starts with him. I remember the training camp practices against the Seahawks. They couldn't get a first down. Will Levis threw an interception. They ran 1 2-minute drill with the first team unit. They ran one play. Will Levis threw an interception. Devin Witherspoon picked it off, ran it over, handed the ball to Jamal Adams. Everybody had a good chuckle. And then it was, okay, first team out, second team in. And I sat there on the sideline and said, what the fuck? Get the first team back out there. They need some more reps. Not with Callahan. Callahan said to me right then, he said, hey, we'll plenty of more reps to get it right before the season starts. Levis and Ridley weren't connecting. Callahan said, well, it's hot out there. What? It's hot out there? You're a head coach. It's hot out there today. I don't know if that's a good enough excuse. And so that was last year. The Colt Anderson stuff and never holding anybody accountable. And Callahan kept his job. And the bigger picture was the organizational structure, Rand, Brinker, etc. What was Amy going to do at the end of the year? Of course, she fucked it up by keeping Brinker on instead of just completely blowing everything up the way she should have done for each of the last 2 years, but that's fine. And then it was, we're going to keep Callahan, but we're going to keep Callahan, but he's on the hot seat. And I said, well, the last thing you want to do if you do that is draft a quarterback. And of course, that's what they went and did. But even then, at that point, when they decided to keep Callahan, I did not know, like, an official final verdict as to whether or not this guy could coach, yes or no. But when I saw the coaching staff remain essentially intact, granted, they did change the special teams coach. When I saw the coaching staff essentially remain intact, I thought, oh shit, this guy, he hasn't learned anything. He must just have all people kissing his ass, just standing around him at any given second, telling him, no, Brian, it's not your fault this team stunk last year. And the fans, not that it's the fans' fault, because the fans are always going to want to be positive, but the narrative was, hey, it was Levis's fault, or it was Rand's fault. And I thought, well, hold on. I mean, Callahan was not a good coach last year. He's going to have to change some things from year 1 to year 2 if he's going to do anything well, and he didn't. He did not change his coaching staff. Same offensive coordinator, same defensive coordinator, essentially same position coaches. And that's basically saying, yeah, it's just the roster. It's not me. Yeah, it's just the quarterback. It's not me, which is fine if that were the case, but it's not true. It's not just the players. The second thing with Callahan for me that was a sign of, oh shit, was that Pee Wee program. And if you're unfamiliar, if you're new to Postgame Live and Stillman and company and everything else, you know, or you probably don't know, but everybody else knows what I mean by the Pee Wee program. This offseason, when they started OTAs, Brian Callahan got up there in front of the media, and Brian Callahan said that he believed that this year was going to be different because he thought long and hard about the mistakes of last season. And his biggest takeaway when addressing the mistakes of last season was we weren't close enough as a team and we made too many dumb mistakes and penalties. And so the way we're going to hold each other accountable is we're going to devise this 8-team system where we're going to have competitions and scores and games, and we're going to play rock, paper, scissors and tug of war. And I said to myself, an NFL head coach with a millionaire 30-year-old athletes is telling people, hey, we're going to compete at rock, paper, scissors this offseason, and that's going to be what decides whether or not we're a good football team. And I thought, oh, shit, this guy's an idiot. Tony Pollard got up there and had a press conference right after Callahan's press conference, and he was asked, what do you win if you win this competition? And Tony Pollard's like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, oh, that's great. You know, with the NBA Cup, which I think is stupid, those guys get $1 million if they win. So they try hard. That's why. Players only understand 2 things, money and playing time. This little competition, that's not going to do anything. And 95% of the Nashville media thought this was a good idea. Callahan put up a YouTube video. The Titans put up a YouTube video where it was the Pee Wee program being highlighted for 45 minutes about how great this was going to be. And I'm like, am I the only person in this town who sees this and says, you guys are all morons, every last one of you that is getting on board with the Pee Wee program? Even people whose opinions I genuinely respect, like Gentry Estes at the Tennessee, and he was like, well, at least he's trying something. I'm like, he's trying the Pee Wee program. So I knew Callahan couldn't coach. when he could not look in the mirror and he could not see what he did wrong last year and say, hey, I got to make changes going into next year. He wasn't willing to do it. He wanted to make up some little kindergarten game that I'm sure they play at my son's preschool in order to try to win football games, and that just doesn't work in the NFL. The other team, Indianapolis, that had their problems last year, fired Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator, brought in Lou Anarumo, and changed their quarterback. Here was the Pee Wee program. So I knew it wasn't going to work, but I was a hater. He's just doing that for clicks. He's just being negative. I think there was a Reddit feed that was discussing Jared Stillman. We should take his fan card away. He's not a fan of the Tennessee Titans. No, I am a fan of the Tennessee Titans. I watched the first half with my dad and my son, and I was absolutely mortified, but I'm not even surprised anymore at how bad this team is and how just inept this organization is. And they'll claim that they have all the answers because that's what they always do. But I want you to think about last season, and I want you to compare it to this season. Last season, the Titans were 0-3. They had gotten run out of their own building by Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers. They started the game off with a pick six. Will Levis picked off by Jair Alexander. This team was going nowhere. It was a train wreck. Fast forward a year. Different quarterback, different general manager. We don't even know what the general manager does. 0-3, run out of your own building by a team quarterback by Daniel Jones. It's same situation. Change quarterback, change general manager, change uniforms, change whatever the fuck you want. If you've got this guy as the coach, nothing's going to change. And again, my big issue is accountability. That entire Pee Wee program this offseason was designed for accountability. And the Titans started the season with 13 penalties, 10 penalties, and 8 penalties. That's what it was designed to do. This team can't get lined up right. And again, I've always believed that players listen to two currencies, money and playing time. What I've realized with how Brian Callahan treats himself, what I've realized with how Brian Callahan treats his coaching staff, and what I've realized with Brian Callahan and how he treats the players is there are no ramifications for bad behavior. There's not. If you don't meet expectations, he doesn't do anything about that. How many times did Nicholas Petit-Frere have to go out there and get his rear end kicked before Callahan finally did something about it? There are no ramifications on this roster. There's no ramification. There's no punishment for Jeffrey Simmons getting an inexcusable personal foul at the end of the Denver game. There's no ramifications or punishment or accountability for Calvin Ridley when he can't catch the ball. They're just going to keep running him back out there, and they're going to keep throwing to him, and they're going to keep hoping that he catches the ball. Because that's what happens when you have no rules. Football games are like tests. I've heard Nick Saban, when he was coaching Alabama, compare it to the midterm. And what the midterm really shows, what it really shows you on a Sunday, is what you have actually put in leading up to the game. Just like the midterm. Did you pay attention in class? Did you do your homework? Did you study? And on Sunday, it shows us the Titans aren't putting in the work. Again, these are not talent issues. These are getting lined up correctly issues. And the reason they're not putting in the work is because nobody in that building is holding anybody accountable. And that starts with the head coach. Again, the general manager is probably more important if he actually picks the players, which I don't think this general manager does. But whoever the player picker is, the player picker is probably more important than the coach simply because players are more important than decisions in the NFL, and the best players make their own decisions. And the owner is more important than both because the owner is the one position that can't be fired. But the most important person when it comes to the daily operation of an NFL team, and I have heard Bill Polian, a Hall of Fame NFL general manager, say this, is the head coach. Because as Bill Polian put it, he touches the players every single day. And so when it comes to the Titans and Brian Callahan, there is no accountability. There is no standard being set because every Sunday there's no standard being met. And Brian Callahan had his chance to make changes. It's not like this is a new issue. They lost a game at Washington last year where Jarvis Brownlee said after the game that it was too cold, and Jeffrey Simmons said they were too hungover from winning the Texan game the week before. So Brian Callahan gets a second chance to be head coach, and he doesn't really change his coaching staff. He doesn't become meaner. He doesn't become less, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, patient. Hey, he just does the same shit. But this time they've got a peewee program in there, and that is going to make the difference. And 95% of the local press believed it. That's the part that disappoints me the most, to be honest, is the people in the local media that were like, well, I think this is I think he's at least trying something. I think he's doing something. So, yes, I would fire Brian Callahan. And if you are watching the stream, go ahead and put it up there. I believe that this is newsworthy because I don't do this all the time. So go ahead and put it up there. A little breaking news. I believe the Tennessee Titans should fire Brian Callahan tonight because somebody has to be held accountable. And Brian Callahan, as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, has proven now in 2 seasons that he cannot hold anybody in that building accountable. So if I were the owner, I would look at it and say, if you can't hold anybody accountable, if you can't hold the players to get lined up correctly, if you can't hold Jeffrey Simmons accountable not to commit dumb penalties, not to start fights in practice, not to be a pain in the ass, if you can't hold your coaching staff accountable because everybody just gets chance after chance, then I, as the owner, have to be the one who holds you accountable. And I have to make a change. And it is not going to change the trajectory of the season. Mike McCoy is not going to win the Super Bowl as the interim head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I get that. It is not going to fix the issues that this team has. And I don't know anything about Mike McCoy other than he's been a head coach in the NFL and they had that 1 year with the Chargers where they made the playoffs. But I don't even know if Mike McCoy is going to hold people accountable. I would tell him as the owner, hey, man, I need somebody in here who could hold everybody accountable. Can you do that? And, of course, he'll say yes because we're going to give him a pay raise and he'll get to be head coach again. But I don't actually know if he can do it or not. But that's what I would do if I owned the team. Again, that doesn't solve all the problems this organization has. So firing Callahan's not going to really fix anything. But I would look at it as the owner, and I would say we have to move in a different direction. We can't just keep running Brian Callahan back out there to be the coach. Secondly, Brian Callahan is not the only problem. In fact, I saw Terry McCormick send out a couple of tweets today, and one of the tweets that Terry McCormick sent out was, quote, Will Levis, you are owed an apology. The struggles of the Titans are much deeper than anyone could have imagined. Well, only a complete and total moron, and I am not calling Terry one of these, but only a complete and total moron would have thought that the only problem the Titans had last year was Will Levis. Now, there were a lot of you out there that did think that. But, again, let's be realistic when it comes to the Titans for a second, if we can be, and let's just call it like we see it. So, with that, I said we're going to hit the Callahan press conference. So I'm trying to do this so that the whole thing doesn't go crazy. The audio doesn't stink as bad, but we're going to try it out.
I don't really worry about that, Buck, to be honest. my focus is on trying to make sure our football team is in as good a place as possible. And the rest of that stuff is what it is. I don't think about those things, and you really can't. I mean, this is hard enough as it is to put those other things and think about that. It doesn't do anybody any good. So I just go to work and work as hard as I can. I put as much effort as I can into this, and that is what it is.
Right. What happened on the field goal attempt? The delay of game before halftime.
Yeah, we went back. I was going back and forth, but we were talking about going for it or kicking it, and that's a kick that Sly's made, and a chance to make it a 17-9 game in that moment. It's a hindsight thing. If you go for it and get it, great. If you go for it and don't, then you're in the same spot. And thought we had a chance to get points there. Sly's been really reliable from deep. He's a bit of a weapon for us, and he's been that way thus far in this season. And then we went to kick it, and they were waiting for some operational things to uncover, and just like to go faster. It obviously had no intention to take a delay game there. Didn't want that to happen. Obviously, looks really bad at the end of the day, and that was not the intention to do that. So wanted to be able to kick it.
Once you call timeout there, I mean, don't you know what you're doing? Shouldn't you have your personnel on the field?
Yeah, certainly. We were going back and forth and wanted a minute to think about it. I was going back and forth between a 4th down call and a field goal, and decided to go take points in that particular situation. And the operational part of it to kick it on time didn't happen.
What's the benefit of having your offensive personnel on the field after the timeout?
Because I hadn't decided yet at the moment on what we're going to do.
I mean, how could you have their timeout, your timeout, and still not have decided?
Like I said, we were having a couple different conversations about it, and ultimately that was a decision we made.
What kind of message, though, you think that sends? Like, not going for it on 4th and not going for it. What message that send to your team?
I don't know. I don't know what message that sends. I was trying to take points and make it a 17-9 game at the half. That was my intent. So I don't know.
I guess the biggest downside
the same thing that happened when we missed the field goal. To play, get the ball back in pretty good field position and not too far away from getting points. And that's exactly what happened. So, again, hindsight, it doesn't work. We don't make the field goal. We don't have to kick it off. And we don't get a chance to go for it, so we don't know if we get it or not. And ultimately, if it doesn't work, you're in the same place. And the same conversation applies on the flip side: is that if we go for it and don't get it, then the question is going to be why didn't you try Sly there from that distance? He's been good from there. So it's a hindsight thing. We didn't make the kick, and we don't look good for it. But I thought that was the right thing, was to try to take points in that moment and make it a 1-possession game.
What happened? It seems several times that they would use a little rollout where they would just flip it out into the flat over, and Timmy kind of got caught in no man's land several times. What was going on there that was happening that wasn't supposed to happen?
Yeah, it's a team that, they've run the ball well so far the course of the season. We did a lot of the same things offensively. We had a few of those exact same type of plays. They're complements to your run game, and they've run the ball well. And when you're trying to stop the run, you are susceptible to some of those boot actions and naked actions. And again, they're not usually explosive plays, but they keep them efficient, and those are the things when you're trying to fit and play the pass. Those are the conflict you get put in. And that's the NFL. That's playing, first and second down defense, trying to stop the run and play the boot action. So again, we had similar plays offensively. We got to do a better job containing those things for sure. But just frustrating overall at the inability to get stops when we needed to on defense.
Why not defer?
I'll leave the reasons for that. I'm going to go too far into detail, but at the end of the day, try to take the ball, see if we could get off to a fast start, see if we couldn't get going offensively, put it in our offense's hands to go try to do something. Obviously, that did not work, but that was the intent, was to try to see if we could get a lead on a team that wanted to run the ball and see if we could swing it in our favor.
What happened on the pick? And I guess after that, how did you feel like he sort of returned from that?
Yeah, he bounced back. That's one of the things he does well. He doesn't flinch when those things happen. It was the third play of the game. There's a lot of football left at that point. So just the decision making, it was just, he's going to try to check the ball down, and he's got to see the defender sitting there. And I don't know, I have to ask him exactly how he saw it, but it's one of those things where you put the ball in harm's way like that. It's an easy interception on a check down. Sometimes it's better to throw it at his feet and eat it or punt it, so you can punt it. But yeah, those are decisions. He hasn't had a lot of those, but that one got him.
Why do you stop relying on Calvin based on the degree to which he's hurt the team?
I'm not going to stop relying on him. He's got to help us. He's got to do his part. We're going to keep throwing the ball to him. He's going to keep putting him in position to make plays. It's the same thing when a guy doesn't perform his best. They got to find a way to pull themselves out of it, and we got to find a way to help him. And at the end of the day, he's still a really good player, and we're still going to need him. And if we're going to claw our way out of the spot that we're in, we're going to need everybody in there to do it. And Calvin's going to be a big part of that. And he's got to find a way to get his confidence back up and perform. But certainly never going to shy away. He's a big part of our offense, and we need him.
For your side of things, how do you help Calvin?
I think you got to keep coming to him. You got to keep throwing the ball. The hard part is that these things don't show up. Sometimes in practice, and all of a sudden in the game, it's a problem. So you got to keep working. It's like a hitter in a slump. He's in a bit of one right now, and he's got to find a way to get out of it. And whatever that is, extra time after practice, whether it's making sure he's catching balls on the jugs, all those things are all a part of it. And a lot of times it's an individual effort, but I still believe in Calvin, and that's part of it too. He's got to feel that the guys believe in him, the quarterback believes in him, and you got to keep working to go back to him, and he's got to come do his part.
What about your disappointment maybe in a lot of different aspects? Had better moments in the first couple of games. How come you think it was today?
Oh, it's Indy's playing really well on offense, and they're moving the ball at a pretty rapid rate, and we, every time we had an opportunity, whether it was on offense to answer or on defense to answer, we could never get ourselves back into the swing, and we couldn't make the answer that we needed on either phase, and it got away from us. And they're playing well. I thought we had opportunities. It was confident going into the game. But we still can't. We haven't done enough good things in any phase. The penalties are still continue to be a problem. You turn the ball over for a touchdown. We miss tackles. We haven't got the quarterback on the ground enough. All those things factor in, and you got the result that we had today.
What are some of the ways that you can clean up some of the procedural and penalty issues that have plagued the team the first 3 weeks?
Well, some of the things we got to do a better job understanding, motions and formations and being set. I think we got called twice for illegal motion, and we weren't set. We got to do a better job doing that. That's an easy thing. That shouldn't be a problem. But when you're checking a protection or you're moving the back, and then there's a motion involved, there's some of that stuff are things that Cam's understanding too. When you got a lot of moving parts in a third down, that you have to have in this league to be able to go against the defenses you got to play against. So that's part of it, and then part of it is we got to do a better job just doing the little things right, and we haven't done that enough, and that's disappointing for the for the amount of time we emphasize and talk about it.
We had the struggles that you've had in all phases of the game. Do you feel like there's still the confidence and the buy-in that coming from everybody in the locker room?
Yeah, I don't think. The one thing I know about our guys is they fight and they work, and we fought in that game. We fought as hard as we could, and ultimately didn't play well enough to win. But I don't have any questions about guys buy-in. I know how they perform. I know what they are in the building. I know how they work, and we just got to find a way to play better on Sundays at the end of the day. And that's everybody. It's that we got to coach better. We got to play better. All that stuff matters. But I don't have any doubts about what these guys do and think at this moment.
3 veterans missed tackles on the longest Taylor touchdown run. How hard is it to survive that? What's your message to them?
Well, and we've missed too many tackles through 3 weeks to begin with. I think we've had moments of really good defense. We've had moments of really good tackling, and at the end of the day, you got to do it for the entirety of a game. And having guys miss tackles is not something that we expect. And again, Jonathan Taylor's a good back. I give a little bit of credit to him as a player, but we got to do a better job getting him on the ground, and we didn't do that.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
That was Brian Callahan at the podium. And I do think the audio problems that we had last week are because we're running the press conference in the background and then boom, putting it over there. So I do wonder if that is still the case here. Like, are we still having the little distorted audio while we have the press conference in the back all the way for Cam Ward? That I don't know. So basically, the Brian Callahan press conference, I think I can sum up with Callahan doesn't know what he's going to do to fix it. Callahan doesn't seem to have any answers, and he thinks they're doing everything the right way. They just, doggone it, don't play well enough on Sunday. And I have to tell you something. I've talked about this when it comes to the benefit of the doubt, especially with coaches and Callahan and general managers. And boy, the Titans every offseason, they demand a just shitload of benefit of the doubt. They're like, oh, Jared, you have to trust us. This Pee Wee program's going to work. Oh, Jared, you have to trust us. Aaron Brewer can be a starting center. Oh, Jared, you just have to trust us. And I've stopped doing that. I've stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt. When it comes to somebody who is effed up the year before, then I'm like, okay, well, get it to me, at the beginning. Like, let's go. Like, let's, whatever. But I thought the Calvin Ridley stuff was pretty telling. Because it's like, what are you going to do with Calvin Ridley? Well, I don't know what we're going to do with Calvin Ridley. I don't know. We're just going to keep running him out there. I still have a lot of faith in him. I still think he can't catch. I don't care how much money he makes. I don't care what his career, earnings or what. I don't care about that. You have to hold guys accountable. You have to sit him on the bench and say, okay, you go to the bench. Why? You're a receiver and you can't catch. To the bench. But Callahan can't do that. So I thought that was pretty telling once again. He's going to do nothing with Calvin Ridley, and he still believes in Calvin Ridley. And then he was asked about the buy-in with the football team, and he says guys are bought in. I don't know how you can know that without watching the tape. Because you can see when guys are loafing on the tape. It's hard to see that in live time. I'm not going to accuse the Titans of not being bought in. I'm not going to accuse the Titans of loafing or not giving a shit. But I don't know if that whole, hey, these guys are bought in. I wish it were that simple, because if it were that simple, then all I'd have to do is fire the coach and then it'd be fixed. And that's not the only issue that this team has. So Whitty says, and I do love Whitty, but he says on the YouTube chat, why should we trust you, Jared? So when I ask you what you mean by why should you trust me, I'm going to sit here and tell you, didn't I tell you the Pee Wee program was bullshit? Didn't I tell you when Callahan just excused everything in his first season, whether it was kicking Simmons out of practice or those awful offensive practices against Seattle, or they just gave Treylon Burks the job to replace DeAndre Hopkins, or they just made excuses for Hopkins when he pouted on the sidelines? Didn't I tell you? Those are massive red flags. I was right about that. Just like I was right about Rand Carthon. Just like I was right about the fact that Amy should have blown it up after the Vrabel Carthon thing didn't work, which was a terrible decision on her part to try to force in that shotgun marriage. But she wouldn't do it. And you guys told me, let Rand cook. The Titans told me. I shit you not. The Titans told me straight up. They said, I got a call, not going to say from who, with the Titans, who told me, you'll see with Rand Carthon. And I swear to God, you could have hooked them up to a lie detector test and they would have passed. But I knew better. Same thing happened with Brinker. When they put Brinker in charge, you'll see. And I'm like, okay. The Titans tried to argue with me that Chad Brinker's experience in Green Bay, where he was like the sixth guy on the totem pole there, is what makes him qualified to run this football team. I don't buy that, but maybe some of you do. I don't know. But you want to know why to trust me? I've tried to say this. This is like a reputation. And this is what's really unfortunate about the NFL and sports in general. And maybe this is just life. But I think there are people who just think that my reputation, and I don't know if this is the popular reputation or if this is how everybody interprets it or not, but that I'll just get on a microphone and I'll say whatever in order to get people to watch or people to listen or whatever. And I find that to be more offensive than anything else you can say about me, especially when people in the media who know me say that. It's like, yeah, Jared Stillman, he's just playing to the crowd. He just shits on the Titans every day. That's all he does, is he just tries to figure out a reason to get on the Titans' asses, and he's a hater. He's a hater for clicks. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just call it like I see it. That's what I have always wanted to do. And for years, I've been telling you, that's a bad idea. And for years, the offseason narrative during what Caroline Fenton calls it'll be fine season is, oh, Jared, you're just a hater. And for the second fucking year in a row, week three, you know the season's over. I know the season's over. They know the season's over. Week 3 last year, the Titans were 0-3, and Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers had come into Nissan Stadium and had absolutely beat the crap out of the Titans, and everybody knew it was over. Week 3 this year, Indianapolis, everybody knows it's over. Everybody knows it's over. So you people can say I'm a hater and you can say that I don't like the Titans. I'm a season ticket holder, and I have not gone to a game since week 3 of last year, and I don't regret it. Like, not one iota. I do not regret not going to these games. And so, again, that's why I think you should trust me. I don't think I'm brilliant. I really don't. I went to USN. And USN is a very, very good high school. And I was a very, very mediocre student. I was not an elite student by any stretch of the imagination. There is a woman I went to high school with. Her name is Nicole Williams. And I'm going to tell you right now, you want to talk about brilliant? I don't even know what Nicole Williams does now for a living. I have no idea. But that woman was brilliant. Straight A's in everything. I think she scored like a 35 out of 36 on the ACT or something like that. She was brilliant. They had a high school awards day at USN where anybody who does anything academically gets recognized. I never got recognized at that. So I am not claiming to be some sort of genius. But I was thinking about this today. If the Tennessee Titans had listened to me, really at any point over the last 3 years, there's no way it could be anywhere as bad as it's been. And this goes back to the day they decided to fire John Robinson. That's the moment for me where I thought, oh my God, what is this organization doing? Holy shit, these guys are idiots. That's the moment. So, again, you may not like Robinson. You may think he was a bad general manager. You never had seasons like this when he was general manager, but they were in first place in the middle of the season. And the owner just fired him. And the fact that the fans were like, yeah, told me, oh God, that's bad. The second thing is the next year, when they had that whole Rand-Vrabel collaboration, this is going to work. I was like, that's not going to work. Now, again, I didn't know any of these candidates that they interviewed for the most part, and they brought Rand in, and I didn't think Rand was as incompetent as he was going to prove that he was going to be at that point, but hey, shit happens. But then the next year I said, blow it up. Vrabel goes, Rand goes, start over, get an experienced football guy in here. Get in Rick Spielman. Get in Thomas Dimitrov. Get in. And people would say things like, but Rick Spielman signed Kirk Cousins. He sucks. Yeah, he went to NFC title games. He sucks. Thomas Dimitrov went to a Super Bowl. Yeah, he sucks. Yeah, boy, I'll tell you, he's so stupid. He would have you getting beat by 30 by Indianapolis at home and being 0-3 in back-to-back year. Yeah, I'm sure. You guys just think you know everything, Titans. So I said, blow it up. They didn't. They promoted Rand. And then when they promoted Rand, they said, I swear to you with a straight face, Jared, you will see. You will see. Rand will prove you wrong. And I said, look, I'm totally for that. I'm totally for Rand Carthon winning a Super Bowl and saying to Terry Bradshaw when he's taking the Lombardi trophy, up yours, Jared Stillman. But I knew it was never going to happen because I knew Rand was incompetent. Then they made Brinker the guy in charge, and they kept on Callahan. And I said, oh, no, he should have just blown it up and gone and gotten a guy who's got experience and knows how to run a team. And again, I was the hater, and now here you are in the exact same spot. So You want to get on me and say, why should you trust me? Because I have been spitting the truth. And as I have been spitting the truth, a lot of people have wanted to say that it is manufactured or that it is fake or that it is somehow a creation of the internet's click desire, whatever it may be. And the truth is, I'm just an angry Titan fan that's sick and tired of this team doing incompetent shit after incompetent shit. I could be like old Tic Tac and get on there and tell you everything you want to hear and then pretend to do a 180 right after it doesn't happen, but I don't do that. I just tell you what I think. So, look, do I think I'm the smartest guy? No, I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world. Do I think I have a better idea of how to operate a franchise than the people that operate the Titans? Absolutely. And I think part of it, too, is it's not like you can be any worse. So, come on now. It's a freaking joke. Like, it's a freaking joke. I don't even remember when, I don't even remember, like, what he got me all worked up, but it's a joke that people think that, like, there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel and the Titans have answers to this. The Titans have no answers. Burke Nihill has no answers. Amy Adams-Strunk has no answers. If my reporting is correct, and I think it was, because I know where I got it from, that Chad Brinker didn't want to retain Brian Callahan, that is the strongest sign that I have that makes me think somebody over there might have a clue. And by the way, watch this narrative really start to pick up steam, because I'm the one in January who said Brinker wanted to get rid of Callahan, and every person was like, that's not true. You're making shit up. Kaharski's like, I didn't hear that. I'm like, I know you didn't hear that, because now that it's not going to happen, Brinker doesn't want it to look like Brinker doesn't have any sort of say in anything or whatever. So they're all going to pretend like, oh yeah, Jared Stillman, he's just making it up. Now, because hating on Callahan is the popular thing to do, it's going to come up more and more that, well, Brinker didn't want to keep him because that's going to be a reason to keep Brinker around. So again, let's recap. Not the game. We all know what happened in the game. But let's recap where we sit today. Should the Titans fire Brian Callahan? I believe they should. I believe that they should fire Brian Callahan tonight. That once everything, for the most part, dies down at the stadium, if I owned the team, I would have called Burke Nihill and Chad Brinker into the box. And I would have said, hey, after the game's over, tell Callahan you want to talk to him. Just, kind of a strategy thing. And then we're going to make a move. And tonight, after we get done talking to Callahan, I'm going to call Mike McCoy, and I'm going to offer him the interim head coaching job. And he will be the one who takes over the team for the rest of the year. And what I want around here is I want accountability. And if that means benching Calvin Ridley, so be it. If that means benching Jeffrey Simmons, so be it. I know we're not going to win a lot with Mike McCoy. I'm not expecting Mike McCoy to win a lot. But we're going to make the change because we just can't let this go on any longer. Now, I'm also going to realize by making this change and moving off of Brian Callahan that firing Callahan likely won't fix the team or save the season. And I think the owner, what the Titans have gotten themselves into a really bad habit of, is the Titans have done this thing where they think it's always one person's fault. They think it's Rand's fault, or they think it's Levis's fault, or they think it's Vrabel's fault, or they think it's Robinson's fault. And that's not really how it works. Now, in some instances, there are just some coaches that get this guy out of here, and my God, this is gonna. Callahan is not the only person here who's at fault. Callahan is not the reason this team is this bad, but he's not doing anything to help it. And so, again, if I own the team, would fire him, but also realize he's not the only problem. Now, I do want to talk about this, and I know as soon as I start talking about this, I know that Cam Ward's going to hit the podium and we'll have his press conference. So I thought Amy Adams-Strunk not speaking at halftime of the Mike Keith retirement session, the Hall of Fame induction, I thought that was pretty low class on Amy's part. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's pretty low class. You guys know as well as I do why Amy Adams Strunk doesn't speak to the media anymore. Because far too often, she has said dumb things, like when she sat down with Mike Keith and she told the Titans fans, we've got a good young quarterback, and that good young quarterback was Will Levis. Because she told Mike Keith, we have ran, and he was incompetent. So instead of having her words played over and over again when she makes the terrible decision that she's going to inevitably make, she just doesn't want that. And today she knew that if she got up there to introduce Mike Keith into the Titans Ring of Honor, that she would have been booed. She knows that. Bert Nighill got booed, I think, pretty deservedly. And I like Bert Nighill. But I think that, again, the way this organization is trending, he's a part of this. He should have been booed. I've been booed before, too. It's okay. But I think Amy not getting up there tells me all I need to know about this organization. Amy says things like when she fires John Robinson, like, I'm not afraid to make the hard decisions. But she can't get up there and induct the crowd and introduce Mike Keith when you're putting him into the team's Hall of Fame. You own the team. So what if they boo? I mean, you can't handle it? Who gives a shit if they boo? I got booed. It was at Bridgestone Arena. They introduced me one time, and it's from Jared the GM, Jared Stillman, and I have my hand in the air, and it's boo! And I'm like sitting there with my hand in the air, and I'm thinking, holy shit. Like, I'm getting booed in my own arena, my own city. And after it was over, our general manager at the time at the radio station, Jana Hampton, she was like, you like that, don't you? And I was like, no, I don't. I was like, I don't like that. I want the whole stadium to go, Jared, Jared, Jared. But I know they're not going to, and I understand that. Amy Adams Strunk is afraid to introduce Mike Keith into the Ring of Honor because she doesn't want to get booed by the fans. Again, if you're going to ask the players to go out there and give it their all with the possibility that they will get booed, then you need to go out there and you need to give it your all with the possibility that you might get booed. And the reason this team is in the position they're in is because Amy cared more about being nice inside the building than she did about actually getting good football people to run the operation. Albert Breer told me at the Super Bowl, and this was on the record, he said, he goes, this is going to sound so stupid, but from what I was told was Amy just wanted the building to be a happier place than it was under Robinson and Vrabel. And I'm like, but they don't win any games. And not only did they want the building to be a happier place, all that is having employees who work there walk around like this. Yeah, I promise I'm happy. Yes, sir, dear leader. I'm so happy to be here. When in reality, the Titans keep firing people that have nothing to do with why they keep losing, like their PR director, Robbie Bourne, who'd been there for forever and is incredibly good at what he does. They keep firing people like that because guys like Brian Callahan don't understand when you go 3-14 that, yeah, you're going to be criticized as the head coach. I mean, I think Brian Callahan pushed out the PR director. I could be wrong about this, but just reading the tea leaves, I think Brian Callahan pushed out the PR director because Brian Callahan last year could not understand why he was getting criticized and why he was getting asked tough questions when the team was 3-14. Because the team is 3-14. But again, that's what happens when you entrust your operation to morons. And Callahan ran, and again, I think Brinker is smarter than both of those guys, but what's he done? So I'm sorry. I do not, I thought Amy not speaking when they put Mike Keith into the team's Hall of Fame was embarrassing. And I think it was a sign of where she sits as the owner of this team, which is she now has decided, she put her hand right there in the pot, fucked everything up with Robinson, fucked it all up with Vrabel, and now she wants totally out of it. Don't blame me, fans. Don't boo me. Don't whatever. I'm just the figurehead here. I mean, Burke and Chad, they run it. Don't bother me. And I'm like, nope. That doesn't work in the NFL. In the NFL, at some point, the owner has to put their foot down and say, okay, this is how we run our operation. The problem is that when Amy gets mad and puts her foot down, it's when they fire a coach after winning a playoff game, or when they fire a general manager after making the playoffs 3 years in a row while they're in first place, getting ready to play Jacksonville at home. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And then finally, if they fire Callahan and they go hire a new coach next year, and, one thing that really is a pet peeve of mine, like really gets in my craw, is, and I heard Ross Tucker do this on the CBS broadcast today, but one thing that really gets in my craw is when I hear people say things like, and general manager Mike Borgonzi's been drafting XYZ, and general manager Mike Borgonzi. And when I hear fans say things like, if you're Mike Borgonzi, don't you have to pick up the phone, and don't you have to, and it drives me insane when I hear that, because Mike Borgonzi does not run the Titans. Chad Brinker runs the Tennessee Titans. But now we're going to get into this whole semantic thing as to who's in charge. Well, Borgonzi should get to pick a coach, and Brinker should get to pick a coach, and they should get to. And I think Brinker is smarter than Callahan and Rand. And I like Callahan. I do. I think he's a good guy. It kills Lindsay, my girlfriend. It kills her that Callahan sucks so bad as a coach, because last summer, the summer of 24, we vacationed down into the Bahamas. We ran into them. And Lindsay loved Callahan and loved his family, thinks he's a great guy. And so when everybody in our household is just bitching about Brian Callahan, she hears the fans just bitching about Brian Callahan, she feels bad about it because she likes him. But I think even she recognizes, like, yeah, it's bad. But what the Titans do is they always blame one person, and the fan base, the narrative, it all becomes that it was that one guy's fault. It was all Robinson's fault. And then it was Vrabel. It's all Vrabel's fault last year. It's all Levis's fault this year. It's all Callahan's fault. And I am just here to tell you that I am not convinced that any of this will get better, like incrementally better, until the Titans do what they have been putting off for the last 4 years, and that is to completely blow up the operation. And that does not mean that there are not good people and good professionals that would lose their job. It might even be Brinker. It might even be Borgonzi if they were to have a complete blow up. But I think that's what they've got to do. I think they've got to completely blow it up. I think they've got to get Burke Nihill as far away from football decisions as possible, and that includes overseeing the football guy. Like, if Burke wants to go deal with the stadium, go knock yourself out. But no football decisions from him. Not even deciding who makes the football decisions. Not even being a part of the interview process for who goes and makes the football decision. But they got to get him out of there. And I think they got to blow it up. And I'm not saying if I owned the team that I'd blow it all up today, but I probably would blow it up at some point. I would have blown it up at the end of last season. I would have blown it up the year before that. But the Titans just can't do it. They just can't do it. Okay, let's get to some of your reaction. And yes, I see you guys talking about my shirt. So this shirt is like it's an Amazon shirt. And I like to buy my clothes off of Amazon and Costco, not because I can't afford better clothes. I don't want to pay more for clothes. And so this shirt is an Amazon shirt. I did not know that it was like it's just like a regular shirt, but I did not know that it came with this like ruffled arms or whatever. It's a very comfortable shirt. You guys can bitch about it all you want, but it's a very comfortable shirt. Ben says, does it kill her? Probably talking about Lindsay. Does it kill her when you wear your shirt? She hates my clothes. Okay, Cam Ward is up at the podium, so let's go ahead and listen to Cam Ward.
We haven't done that at a high enough level to win football games.
What do you say to him? You know, when you have these drops, like, I know you say, "Hey, look, like I'll make a bad throw," but that conversation, what's that like?
Explain it.
After the drops, I know in the past you said that you told whoever that you'll make a bad play, so don't worry about it. But is that consistently what the conversation is?
Yeah. And then he knows he has to be better. I know I have to be better. I can't put us down 7-0 at the start of the game. So, I put us behind the 8 ball, and the whole game we had to calm ourselves back until not win the football game. So it was kind of just really on my standpoint. Then on his, like, everybody wants to play back every game. Whether it's that play for him, it's a couple plays I want back in this game, but we can't get them back. At the end of the day, we just got to not make the same mistake next week.
Some of the going for it there on the 4th and 1 yes.
The delay game, I'm always trying to go for the 4th down. That's really my mindset. But at the end of the day, that's coach. Like, he's gonna put us in the best situation. Joey, he's made that kick before, so he's gonna get another opportunity this season. He'll make it.
It seems like sometimes the seam passes, seems like there's a little heat on them sometimes through the first 3 weeks. Is that something that you're working on, like with tape study, or is it something that you're going to have to take some of the heat off of those passes so your receivers can come down with those?
It's not even that. It's just us just working them more in practice. And then, especially the one the Chig, I put it too hot for him. He had to make a crazy catch. I shouldn't have to put him in that situation to make that catch. So it's really all depend on my accuracy. I had to be more accurate with football. And I mean, they're there. We just haven't connected with them from my side and the receiver side. But we just got to continue working it.
Yeah, this is your adopted now hometown team. To hear boos come down from fans, how does that make you feel?
I play football, so I'm always gonna have my opinion. I'm not really too worried about that, and I'm trying to score points. We ain't do that enough to win the game today. But I mean, if I was them, I wouldn't be mad. I'd be mad too. I'm trying to win football games, the same as there. So if that's what they're gonna do, we got to lock in as a group in the locker room and continue to motivate each other, push each other, and try to get a win.
What would you say is the confidence level of the offense and just the team overall through 3 games?
Confidence is high. We know we have a legit football team to make a run. It's really just us beating ourselves from technique to, I would say, offensively, just stand above the sticks. And then they just come down to us just continuously trying to fight adversity. We can't put ourselves in that situation a lot of times. And the biggest thing is just penalties. We got to, be least penalized.
Can we look at the sacks and the pressures that you're under? When you look at some of the other younger QBs in the past and that is quote unquote ruined them, what is it about you that will keep you from going down that same path?
A lot of the sacks are on me. I think that's the biggest thing, especially one at the end, just not getting the ball out. You see him throwing the ball. So it's just something that, I got to continuously remind myself to just help him out, get the ball out. Then at times where I need to hold on to the ball with this 3rd down or so, then we all just got to continue to play together. But, half of the sacks are on me. Then the offensive lineman is going to get beat. Like, they playing get some good comp out there. So, I just got to help them out, getting the ball out and not letting them, not taking a bad drop, but then making the angle easier for the DN.
So you would say self-accountability, self-awareness, that's what keep you from going down the path of maybe a David Carr, a Josh Freeman, where early they had those type of struggles as far as getting sacked all the time and ruining their career.
I would say that, and then just continuously motivating guys. They motivated me a lot, especially after the pick today, just knowing that we got you, and then just helping those guys out by getting the ball out.
How important have you found decisiveness to be? And are you doing better when you make a clear decision and go with it, and as opposed to the plays where you might hesitate a little bit?
I think I get better at that every week. And I would say, like, Coach Bo and Callie and Coach Nick, they've all just let me know what I need to do better to help the offense out. Because there was times today where we're moving the ball efficiently. But that's what we have to do throughout the whole season. We can't have highs and lows. We have to be more consistent.
When you were moving the ball, were you having the most success when you were being the most decisive?
Yes. Even when we weren't moving the ball when I was being decisive. It's all about, us just trying not to be in long situations, trying to stay out of them.
I was just gonna say, how difficult is it keep moving the chains when you're facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 7 on a regular basis?
Well, I mean, 3rd and 10 better being like 3rd and 20. So, I'll take that all day. But we have to consistently try and live in a 3rd and 5 world, 3rd and short world, because the top offense in the league, when they live in that world, they're just more efficient on 1st, 2nd down. So, that's what we got to do. We did it at times today, but we just got to do it consistent next week. Appreciate it.
Go. That was Cam Ward at the podium following the Titans 41-20 loss to Indianapolis. And quite frankly, it wasn't even that close. Cam Ward, when asked about the boos by the fans, Cam Ward says, I play football. Basically saying, hey, they want us to win football games. I want us to win football games. I get it. I thought that was a very good answer from Cam. Cam was asked about the confidence of the football team, and he said the confidence is high. Apparently, and this is pure secondhand gossip, but a friend of mine was at the game and said that at halftime, as the team was booing the team off the field, apparently Jeffrey Simmons started yelling at the fans, which does not surprise me in the least. Simmons is such a weirdo. Okay. So I want to get back to the kind of the big takes from today's game here on Postgame Live, which, again, we appreciate everybody tuning in here to Postgame Live. The first one is, if I owned the Tennessee Titans, which is how I do this on a consistent basis, if I owned the Tennessee Titans, I would fire Brian Callahan tonight. In fact, it would probably be right now at 4:09 p.m. Central Time, as the players have left the locker room and are on their way home, and the fans have left the stadium and they're on their way home. And I would have Callahan and my brass with me meeting in a room, an office, something at Nissan Stadium, in which I would tell Brian Callahan, thank you for your service, but it's time to go in a different direction. And I am not ruling this out that he will be fired tomorrow. I think there's a legitimate chance that Brian Callahan is relieved of his duties tomorrow. And then I would turn around and I would make Mike McCoy the interim head coach of the Titans. Now, I would recognize that by doing this, I'm not changing the trajectory of the season. I'm not fixing anything, but I just don't believe that Brian Callahan can hold anybody accountable. I don't think he's got that mean bone in his body. I don't think he gets the best out of this group. I don't think he gets the most focus out of this group. And I don't think that he holds his coaching staff accountable either, because there are guys that after last year's debacle shouldn't have jobs that do. And if I owned the team, I'd make that change, because somebody has to be held accountable around here. And Callahan, as the head coach, is not holding anybody accountable, and it shows on Sundays. The second thing is, we need to just, I think, be honest. Brian Callahan is not the only problem with this football team. It is not as simple as it will be made out on talk radio of callers calling in saying, I think we need to fire Callahan. I think he's going to ruin Cam Ward. I think we need to get the next guy in here. I think we need to blah, 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 blah. It's not that simple. This team has serious problems. Again, do you know who's even picking the players? Is it Brinker? Is it Borgonzi? What is it? You don't even know that. So this team has much larger issues than just the head coach. But it is truly amazing how week in and week out, this team is so incredibly unprepared to play and undisciplined. And somebody's got to take the fall for that. And there's just too much season left to sit there and say, well, you know what? Let's just play it out till the end of the string. I am also not convinced that until the Titans finally blow up the operation and bring somebody into the mix that has run an organization before, and they truly give that person the power to run the organization, do I think this will get any better. I don't think there is a player they can draft that will make this better. I don't think there is a player they can sign that will make this better. And I'm not even sure there's a head coach that would take the job that could make this better given the state of the organization. And that doesn't mean that I don't think Brinker can do it. I don't know. Brinker, I do think, is smarter than Rand Carthon was and than Brian Callahan is. But that doesn't really change the fact that this nature of who's in charge, who did this, who did that, I don't think that that system works. So I'm of the belief that none of this changes until the Tennessee Titans hit the reboot button. I actually had somebody with the Titans tell me when Mike Borgonzi got hired, and they said, and this was somebody in the organization who said, it is not good to just fire everybody every year. And I said, that to me is actually incorrect. People will say it's a sign of dysfunction that the Titans fire somebody new every year. And there's some truth in that. But the Titans are dysfunctional. I think being 0-3 and not being able to get lined up is a sign of dysfunction. The reality is the Titans need to keep running through these guys until they find one that can actually do it. Until they actually find a guy that can do it. The firings that I was against, I wasn't against Vrabel's firing, by the way. And by the way, how's he doing? How did the great Mike Vrabel do today? But the two firings that I was against were Mularkey and Robinson. And the reason why is because when Mike Mularkey was fired as coach, the Titans had won 9 games in back-to-back years. They had been to the division round of the playoffs. And I had lived through the Munchak and Wisenhunt era. I had lived through the end of Jeff Fisher. And I said, you go 10 years without a competent coach and you get to the playoffs and now you want to change the coach? No, because I knew that guy had a clue. I say the same with Robinson. John Robinson made a lot of moves I did not like and did not agree with when they happened. I did not agree with the Julio Jones trade. And people were pissed at me and Caroline for being anti-Julio Jones trade because everybody's like, oh my God, Julio, oh, it's going to be so great. And I'm like, he's 31 and coming off of a hamstring. I'm not trading a second-round pick for that. Get the fuck out of here with that. And I thought the Caleb Farley thing was stupid. The guy just had back surgery. You're going to draft him? You ever met a guy who had a bad back? No. You either have a bad back or you don't. Nobody ever recovers from a bad back. It never happens. So Robinson did some dumb shit, but I was against it when they fired Robinson because I was sitting there saying like, dude wins. Never had a losing season. He's been to the playoffs in 4 out of 6 seasons. They've been 3 years in a row. They're in first place in the division, and apparently they thought they could do better. And since then, they haven't won anything. So until they go for a clean break, a true blow up, and bring in somebody in the organization who knows what they're doing, and I am not talking about Tom Brady, the way he's running the Raiders, but I mean, I'm talking about somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Until that happens, I don't think this is going to change. And I don't even think that I'm that upset about it anymore because every time it comes to there's a decision to be made, I am so disappointed because Amy always does what I'm like, you got to, if you're going to fire Vrabel, fire Rand 2, start over. No, we're going to promote Rand Carthon. Oh, God. Oh, God. And then we end up in the exact same spot. And so I'm just kind of over it. Now, when she does something stupid like that, like make Chad Brinker the president of football operations, even though Chad Brinker doesn't have anything on his resume that says that he should be the president of football operations, I just shrug my shoulders and say, fuck it. This is how they're running this operation. And I thought that Amy not speaking during the Mike Keith induction ceremony, I thought that was kind of low. I thought she should have done it. And I was disappointed that she was not. Okay, let's get to some of your reaction here through the YouTube chat. Again, great numbers today. I mean, for Postgame Live, people want to vent. Again, I think the Titans should fire Brian Callahan, and I would make Mike McCoy the interim coach. Some people are like, no, it should be Bones Fossil. I could live with it being Bones Fossil. I mean, I could live with it if they kept Callahan. I wouldn't, but it's fine if they do. It's not going to make that big of a difference. But I think Mike McCoy makes the most sense. He's a former NFL head coach, and he does not run a position group or a division of the football team, offense, defense, special teams. Lincoln says, The people they fired deserve to get fired, except Malarkey and Robinson. My problem is how they don't fire everybody all at once. Bring in a new general manager and let them bring in a coach on the same page. You know what's funny? What really began kind of this Amy offseason of instability was the decision after the 21 season when they were the number one seed in the AFC playoffs and Robinson and Vrabel got contract extensions. And I felt like Amy was kind of taking Robinson's hand and taking Vrabel's hand and putting them together and basically saying, you and you make it work. You guys figure it out. Make it work. You guys are in this together. You're the coach. You're the GM. And this is how it's going to be. So that there is no Jeff Fisher v. Floyd Reese. And then 8 months later, she fires Robinson. So she screws the whole deal up. But that was where a guy picked his coach and you guys are in it together. And that was when they used to win some games. I agree with you. One person says, why are we talking about a dude that hasn't been here in 3 years? Jared, please start talking about A.J. Brown. By the way, I did not see the game. I don't know if A.J. played well today or not. Again, A.J. is a good player, and that was a big mistake. But can I just say this? You've won 9 games since you fired John Robinson. John Robinson won 9 games at least every season as the general manager of this team. I mean, give me a break. Ryan says, started from the beginning. Jared agrees with us that Callahan should be fired, yet we want him fired for all the wrong reasons, apparently. I think the fans want Callahan fired because the team stinks and because they want somebody to be held responsible for it. That there's some itch that's like, get him out of here today, fire his ass. And that you think that if you do that, that's going to change the season or anything like that. It's not. I would fire Callahan because I'm sick and tired of the idea that the Pee Wee program is going to fix the penalty issue. And then the penalty issue doesn't get fixed and they just shrug it off. Have you noticed every time there's a problem since Brian Callahan has been the coach, it's always just right tackle. We'll figure it out last year. Oh, we don't have a backup right tackle? Fine. Put John Ojukwu out there. That's Callahan land. For me, I look at it and I'm like, how is this organization supposed to improve when you can get away with anything around here? Nobody holds Jeffrey Simmons accountable. Calvin Ridley doesn't catch the ball. And he doesn't get held accountable. Callahan in his press conference today was like, I still have all the faith in the world in Calvin Ridley. You think Vrabel would have said that? And again, Vrabel had his issues. Trust me. But holding people accountable was not one of them. So that's why I would do that. And that's why I'd move on from him. But I wouldn't, it's not as if I would move on from Callahan simply because, I'm mad that they lost today. Jaden says, I'm expecting some news on Monday from the Titans brass. You know, I try not to guess what the Titans are going to do, and I said this last week because I didn't think Callahan was going to be fired, but it does feel like sometimes when you don't think they're going to do something, that's when Amy turns around and does it. I didn't think last week they were going to fire Callahan. I think there's a pretty good chance he gets fired tomorrow. Like, I think it's pretty good. Like, if you had to ask me, Jared, how certain are you that Callahan's going to get fired? I certainly wouldn't give you like a 10 out of 10. Like what Matt Eberflus was after they lost that Thanksgiving game and they couldn't manage the clock and the players were openly complaining about it. I'd give it a 55%. I think it's more likely than not that Callahan's out tomorrow. Just because it's so bad. Juan says, the Titans need an edge rusher, not going to lie. Let me say this, and I know that it's early in his career, so I don't want to upset anybody with this. Femi Oladejo sucks. He sucks. There was one play where they threw a pass to Tyler Warren, where Warren, the CBS showed the replay, Warren ran across the formation, and Oladejo like taps him and then keeps going down. I'm like, dude, if that tight end's running into your way right across, knock his ass on the ground. But I guess that's not what they teach as far as the Titans are concerned. Will says, I can't remember a coach ever being a consistent detriment to their team's chance at winning like Brian Callahan has been for the Titans. So what's funny is this time last year, it didn't feel like Brian Callahan was getting that kind of blame. But when you think about it, shouldn't he have been? Like they played Green Bay at home in week 3 last year. And they got absolutely butt-fucked by the Green Bay Packers. I mean, let's just call it what it was. Malik Willis came in here, and they crushed him. And Will Levis threw an interception, and Jair Alexander picked it off. And after the game was over, again, because this was when everybody was going after Levis, and it was like, oh, Levis, he sucks. Oh, Levis, he sucks. And I said to myself, I'm like, wait a minute. The head coach cannot just sit there and say, well, that's an all-pro player in this league, and he made a great play, and so let's just ignore that our quarterback just threw a pick 6 to start the game. And I'm like, oh, my God. That should have been a sign that Callahan couldn't hold anybody accountable. That should have been a sign. I remember when Callahan talked after they beat the Dolphins in week 4, the Dolphins with a backup quarterback, Tyler Huntley was in there. And I remember Callahan was like, this just proves that our process works. I'm like, dude, you're 1-3. Shut up. Say your process works when you win the AFC. One person says, I've seen 2 of the most atrocious game management errors I've ever seen in 3 weeks, and I've watched the Titans since they have come to Nashville. Just fire him tonight. I thought what happened before the half was so incredibly inexcusable. The management or lack thereof. Again, I can't even remember like the way it all went down. So Indy calls timeout. Then the Titans call timeout. Then the Titans try to kick a field goal and they got a delay of game. I don't even know how that happens. But I think the answer to me is simple. Callahan doesn't know what he's doing. And I go back to Callahan with the accountability aspect. When they did not challenge the Io Manor play in the Denver game, Callahan got up there and said definitively that you had to have a foot inbounds, not just the elbow. And that was definitively wrong. And afterwards, it became not, hey, your NFL coach is so stupid that he doesn't know the rule, which to me is the story. But what happened was, instead of it being that, which should have been the issue, it then turned into, well, was it the guy in the booth that's supposed to tell him to challenge that didn't know the rule to the, it's like, if the guy in the booth doesn't know the rule, then you fire the guy in the booth. It's as simple as that. But Callahan can't hold anybody accountable. He can't hold his coaches accountable. He can't hold his rules coordinator accountable. I mean, I bet that if they got there in the cafeteria for lunch and there was no food out there and the chef said, oh, yeah, we forgot to make it, Callahan probably say, hey, they're doing the best they can. And that's why I'd fire him. But I don't even know what the fuck happened before the end of the half because that was a train wreck. Paul says, what about Brinker? I mean, look, this is the way I view it. I view it as Amy listens to 2 people. She listens to Bryce Wasserman, who is her son-in-law, and she listens to Burke Nihill, who is the team CEO. I believe Brinker is Burke Nihill's guy. Why? I don't know. Should he be? Again, I don't know. I think Brinker's probably safe. And if my reporting was right, and Chad Brinker didn't want to keep Brian Callahan, but Amy made him, then if you're Amy, how can you really be that mad at Chad Brinker? But I do think that when it comes to Chad Brinker, if I bought this team, I was actually thinking about this. I been using ChatGPT and I'm like, if you invested X amount of dollars or whatever, and it's like, if you had $60 billion, there's a stock that I own that has just gone parabolic. A buddy of mine from high school, again, I said this earlier today, I was not by far, by any means, one of the smarter people that I went to high school with. There was a buddy of mine that I went to high school with who is a finance bro in New York, and he gives me stock tips and things like that, and a lot of them have done very well. But there's one in particular recently. It's a tech stock that has just gone parabolic. And I've been like, hey, if this tech stock, which has gone nuts and can be like the future of quantum computing, which is what it is, if this tech stock becomes the next Apple, what would that equal? And it's like, well, that could equal 60 billion or whatever. And if that were the case, then I would try to buy the Tennessee Titans. I would buy the Atlanta Braves because I would make Liberty Media a publicly traded company an offer they can't refuse, or their shareholders would make them. And so I would buy the Braves. And if I bought the Braves or the Titans or whatever, if I bought the Titans, I would fire Chad Brinker. Not because I think Chad Brinker's as stupid as I thought Rand was, because I don't think Chad Brinker's that stupid. Even if he didn't want to keep Callahan, which is the right decision, but just because I want an experienced football guy to run the team. To run the team. This person says, bet you believe in the Colts now. There had to be 20,000 Colt fans in Nashville. We can't wait till your new stadium opens up. We are going to call it Lucas Oil South. First of all, let me tell you a story. In 1999, the Tennessee Titans went on the road to the RCA Dome in the divisional round of the playoffs and beat the Indianapolis Colts. And they did so by overtaking the stadium. And this was before StubHub existed, when it was actually hard to get tickets on the secondary market. And your Hall of Fame general manager, Bill Polian, called the Tennessee Titans general manager, Floyd Reese, and said, is there a mole in my ticket office that allowed so many Titan fans into the RCA Dome? So stop pumping your chest out there like Indianapolis is special. Indianapolis is going to be an 8 or 9 win team. You heard it here first. They are going to be an 8 or 9 win team. And the lack of Titan fans has nothing to do with the Colts. Tennessee plays Kansas City this year. And I guarantee you that stadium will be packed with Kansas City fans. You guys don't like my shirt, don't go to the Kansas City game, because that's all you're going to see. Maybe without the little ridges here, but that's all you're going to see. And so, again, I mean, look, the Colts came in here and the Colts operated efficiently, which I do appreciate as a football guy. And I actually was talking to my dad about this during the game when they showed Carly Ursay-Gordon on the sideline, and they talked about how she wears a headset and she had the little earpieces in there, and she had her little, she had her play sheet in front of her. She was looking at like, okay, yeah, what should we? I actually like that, because when we sit here and we say things like, well, who told Callahan that they didn't know the rule? If you had a headset on, you own the team, you'd know it. You'd know it. So I actually like that. Juan says, we got cooked by Daniel Jones. Jessica says the Colts do look good this year. Call me back in a little bit. I'm not sold on the Colts. Okay, that's going to do it for Postgame Live. Good numbers today. I really, really do appreciate that. Like and subscribe to @Stillman & Company on YouTube. Again, be sure to check it out. I am expecting that the Titans will fire Brian Callahan tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if they don't, but I am expecting it. Like and subscribe. And again, wherever you get your podcast, that's where we're at. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, or whatever day it is you're listening to this. Enjoy the rest of it. Don't let the Titans totally get you down. See you all tomorrow live at 2:00 for Stillman & Company on the Stillman & Co. YouTube page. And of course, next week for Postgame Live.